For the Cleveland Browns, it was the best week of the season outside of the Ravens game. You know why? It was the bye week. The Cavaliers are 12-0 after defeating the Chicago Bulls and the Brooklyn Nets over the weekend, including a huge win over Golden State, which I discussed on Short Take Saturday. And Golden State's the best team in the Western Conference right now, so there's a lot to talk about in the NBA. Plus, the Miami Dolphins getting a big win over the Los Angeles Rams. How about Cincinnati and Baltimore? That's a big factor in the AFC North, but Pittsburgh still leads the division, and yeah, they look for real after defeating Washington. And Detroit, Jared Goff throwing 5 interceptions in a game and still winning it as the Detroit Lions took down the Houston Texans. Are the Houston Texans on the verge of a late season collapse? I don't think so. We'll discuss all that and more right here on Raw Takes. Welcome to Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty. As always, like, comment, and subscribe below if you enjoy the content that we bring you here on Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty. Also, make sure to check us out on social media. You can find me at Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty on Facebook, at Twitter/X, Hoty Andrew, and on Instagram at Hoty Raw Takes. Welcome to the show, everybody. Hope everyone had a great weekend. I sure did. I did a lot of traveling. I was at Erie, Pennsylvania on Saturday, tried a great restaurant over there, as well as looking at all the Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland gear they offer in one section. I have a short on that on my channel here, so make sure to check that out if you haven't yet. We're at 1,300 views on that video, so make sure to check out that short right here on YouTube. Very impressed with that, but make sure to check into Raw Takes as well because we have plenty of great content for you here too. So let's get right into some basketball in the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are now 12-0, their best start in franchise history. Honestly, looking at the schedule, they could be 15-0 before they play Boston. It's pretty favorable to them, looking at playing Chicago again, especially because the Bulls aren't a very good basketball team. But having said that, I kind of want the Cavs to lose before they play Boston just because I want them to be brought back down to earth before they go into a big game. I don't want the big game they lose to be the Boston Celtics, if that makes sense. So that's part of where I stand on that issue. But hey, it'd be great to still be 15-0 and maybe go to 16-0 if you could beat the Boston Celtics. Not complaining about that either. But the Cleveland Cavaliers offense has just been draining everybody. And they looked vulnerable in that Brooklyn game to a degree, but they just came back. And even in the Chicago game, they had some vulnerability, but they still ended up winning the game because their offense has just been absolutely on fire. You look at Darius Garland, he's absolutely not the guy we saw last year. You look at Donovan Mitchell still being Donovan Mitchell. You look at Evan Mobley. You look at Jared Allen, who still play great defense and get you some boards. Evan Mobley, of course, offensively has had a huge step in the right direction. How about Ty Jerome last night with a big performance from him? And Kenny Atkinson so far looks like the difference maker with the Cavs because not many adjustments were made to this roster. And we know Kobe Altman was pretty adamant on, hey, we're just changing the coach. We still believe in this core 4 group of guys. And a lot of people last year, after the playoff loss to the Boston Celtics, were like, this is probably the ceiling for the core 4. I don't know if we can get ourselves to the Eastern Conference Finals. Right now, the Cavs and the Warriors lead the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. It's starting to feel like 2015, 2016 again, isn't it? Maybe so. As I said before, I'm not so sure the Cavs are going to be the team that faces off in the finals itself this year. Maybe the Eastern Conference Finals, but I still have some hesitancy to say that this core 4 group is going to be the group that works out long-term into the postseason. I think this is great for the regular season, but there's still a lot of basketball to be played and absolutely a great start. The Cavs are well underway to 50 games plus in the win column. Maybe 60 if they keep this up, honestly. This looks like a really good group of guys that we have here in Cleveland, but we'll see. I'm not so sure I want to say 60 wins. Definitely 50 plus. They're on their way to probably a 56-26 or 57-25 season. Having said that, though, when you look at the rest of the NBA right now, you look at the Golden State Warriors with no Klay Thompson, and I was honestly surprised by that. They look even better without him. And, obviously Klay Thompson, when he was in his prime, was back in those 2015-2016 seasons, and so Klay Thompson being gone from the Golden State Warriors, it feels weird, but at the same time, it's working for Golden State, and they find themselves in the top of the Western Conference right now. Oklahoma City, they had a huge loss with Chet Holmgren, and they were undefeated for a good chunk of this year, but right now, it's not looking good for them either with everything going on. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will be able to hold the court down for OKC, but it's not looking good, I think, overall in terms of how the roster is constructed to consistently win over and over again, because they did start off really well to the season. I'm not so sure with just Shai Gilgeous-Alexander they're going to be able to do that. I think they need Chet Holmgren to come back in a massive way. And you look at all the other injuries taking place. I mean, Kevin Durant the Suns are still winning without Kevin Durant to a degree, but how much is that going to be sustainable? You look at Zion Williamson being out for New Orleans indefinitely. That's huge, but then again, what else is new with that? Zion's kind of been the problem with the New Orleans Pelicans, and it's really been Brandon Ingram being their main star, and the Pelicans have just not risen to the occasion, even with Zion on the court. So New Orleans has a long way to go, but Zion's healthy. The Clippers have the same issue with Kawhi, obviously. There's so many injuries that a lot of these guys keep getting over and over and over again, and it's costing them seasons. But the Clippers are still the Clippers, and you look at the Denver Nuggets, obviously. The Western Conference is a little bit of a different animal. But you look at the East right now, there's so many bad teams playing bad early. Indiana just got to 500 for crying out loud. And we know Indiana is probably a playoff team to begin with, but still, I mean, the Milwaukee Bucks are awful to start the year. As I said, the problem there is coach. Doc Rivers has to go. The Milwaukee Bucks honestly look so bad, I'm not sure they're going to make the playoffs this year. And I know Doc Rivers said, oh, we'll make the playoffs. I'm not worried about that. Are you sure? Are you sure with how bad the Milwaukee Bucks look right now with two superstars in Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard? You sure about that? I'm not so sure. Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers also off to a poor start to the year. New York Knicks are off to a mediocre start, but they haven't looked like the world-ending team we thought they could be. The Cavs already beat them too. I mean, it's really been the Cavs and the Celtics in the East. And right now, if I were to pick who would go to the Eastern Conference Finals, yeah, those would probably be my two teams I'd say would be there. I'd think the Boston Celtics already having that experience and probably being as well coached as they are probably overcome the Cleveland Cavaliers, but there's still so much basketball to be played, and it's so early in the season, even despite a 12-0 start, which is phenomenal, but there's a long way to go for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But hey, we'll take it for what it's worth. The Cavaliers are 12-0. They're on a roll. You look at the rest of the NBA, there's still a lot of question marks surrounding a lot of teams in the league. I think the only sure things right now are the Boston Celtics and the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Everybody else is kind of just figuring things out. Over time, I think we see the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference start to figure things out slowly but surely. Unless the Bucks fire Doc Rivers, I don't think they're going anywhere right now. Unless you look at the 76ers and everybody gets healthy and you look at them probably as a good threat. The Phoenix Suns, same way with Kevin Durant out right now. And the same thing with the New Orleans Pelicans. I can't really be surprised about them. And John Morant, I didn't even mention him. The Memphis Grizzlies, their season's kind of questionable right now. Are they going to rise to the occasion yet again? Who knows? It's wide open in the NBA from what it looks like. But really, I'd say the league right now runs through Cleveland, Boston, and San Francisco, where the Golden State Warriors play. So go Cavs. What a great start to the year. And they'll start to slowly but surely figure things out over time. And I don't think the Cavs are going to just go on this magical 82-0 run. At some point, they got to lose. As I said, just because of history, I'd rather them beat the Celtics and lose a game prior. But if they can go 16-0, that's great. I don't want to see them be 15-1 and lose to the Celtics. That would just hurt. To lose to the Celtics like that, being 15-1, that would really, really hurt, in my opinion. So I think the Cavs need to slice a humble pie before they get to that point. So that way they can take on the Celtics and win. But we'll see. We'll see. Everything that Kenny Atkinson's doing is working so far for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they're the best team in the NBA based on the record. Overall, though, I'd say the Celtics probably have the edge, but it's so early in the season. It's only November. We got plenty of basketball left to be played, and things may look a lot differently in the Eastern Conference come April. We'll have to see what takes place. All right, how about the Miami Dolphins defeating the Los Angeles Rams yesterday? The Miami Dolphins were absolutely on fire defensively. Chop Robinson making some big plays in terms of sacks. How about some consecutive turnover plays and drives that took place for both the Rams and the Dolphins, who seemed to not be able to keep the ball on their side of the field, but the Dolphins' defense, I think, really was the big factor here for them in this game. And the Miami Dolphins, if you look at their schedule, it's pretty favorable to them. I think they could win probably 7-8 games going down the stretch and maybe get themselves back in the wild card conversation. Will they? I'm not saying they will or not, but the Miami Dolphins are definitely a lot better than the Cleveland Browns. They're definitely a lot better than the Jacksonville Jaguars. They beat the Jaguars to open the season, so I am not closing the door on the Miami Dolphins possibly figuring things out and getting themselves back in the conversation. I think they've answered some questions yesterday. Defensively, they look really good. I still believe the Rams are a lot better than 4-5. I don't know why they're 4-5, but we've seen teams that are 4-5 still find their way to make it back into the playoffs. Look at the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2016. They were 4-5, finished 11-5. So you just never know in this league. But I mean, the Los Angeles Rams are a good opponent, I think, for the Dolphins, and they absolutely shut them down. It was almost like it was a Dolphin home game. I saw a lot of Dolphin jerseys compared to Ram jerseys in that game too. So the Miami Dolphins getting the win there. I think that's good for them on Monday Night Football. We'll see what takes place for them. I like the look of their schedule. They still have to play the Jets twice, and the Jets have been terrible. You have to look at the fact they play New England again, so they still have 3 divisional games that they haven't played yet. And you look at the divisional games they've played outside of Buffalo, they're won them all. I mean, they're 1-2 in the division, and they beat New England the one time. So that's it. That's it for the Dolphins right now. Can they start to kind of figure things out slowly but surely? I think so. But I still think the problem for the Dolphins at the end of the day is I just don't trust Tua Tagovailoa. I trust a lot of their offensive pieces. I trust their defense now more than ever, especially with a guy like Chop Robinson playing defense the way he is. But I'm not so sure that the Miami Dolphins can do anything with the quarterback situation. I'm just not sold on Tua Tagovailoa, and I have to see more from him in order for me to buy in. But we'll have to see what takes place. Having said that, you look at some of the other teams going on right now in the NFL. How about the Detroit Lions turning it over 5 times? Jared Goff with 5 interceptions. They still found a way to win a crazy football game. It's only happened 3 times where a quarterback since 1991 turned it over 5 times and still won the game. Tony Romo and Matt Ryan were the other 2 to do it. And now Jared Goff joins that exclusive club. And the Detroit Lions, it just did a testament to how good of a football team they are. They're really, really good. That was amazing that they were down 23-7. And I think the Houston Texans are really, really good. But now there's going to be some question marks around the Houston Texans. They lost to the Jets last week, and now they just lost to Detroit. Detroit obviously is a good team. The New York Jets are not. So now there's going to be questions in Houston surrounding, are the Houston Texans on the verge of a collapse? I don't think so. I think we're going to see them play Kansas City tough later this season. I don't think they've played Baltimore yet. I think they're going to play them really tough too. I think we're going to start to see the Houston Texans have a little bit of a tougher road to clinch the South. But based on how Jacksonville, Indianapolis, and Tennessee are playing, they should have no problems winning this division easily. Easily. The Houston Texans, I think, will be just fine. I'm not sure they're going to win a playoff game again. That's another conversation for a different day, because C.J. Stroud has kind of come down to earth himself a little bit, already with a playoff victory against the Browns under his belt. But, I mean, there's still a long way to go for the Houston Texans. But you know what? That game proved a lot about the Detroit Lions and what a good football team they are, because Jared Goff only had 4 interceptions on the season. He doubled it plus 1 in that game, and the Lions still won. They came back and won. It's a gritty team. They're fun. They're electric. The Detroit Lions, I still think they're going to finish 14-3, probably have the first overall seed in the NFC. They're just such a fun football team, and they're so easy to root for and likable. There's not much to dislike about the Detroit Lions, and in all honesty, it's incredible what they're able to do so far. All right, how about the Cleveland Browns on a bye week? So far, my favorite week of the season outside of the Baltimore win. Oh man, it's just been a gritty season. And you look at the rest of the AFC North with how poorly we're doing compared to how they're playing. Cincinnati and Baltimore, their offenses look electric, and Pittsburgh overall as a team looks better than they do. I mean, please. Now, the Steelers are going to come down to earth slightly because they haven't played a divisional game yet. They play Baltimore this week. So I think the Steelers kind of get some humble pie at some point. Either they split with the Ravens or the Bengals, or they're going to lose some divisional games. And maybe even to the Browns, because divisional games are just like that. But right now, I don't know if I want the Browns to compete with the Pittsburgh Steelers the way they're playing right now. I barely trust them to compete with the Ravens and the Bengals. I mean, they beat the Ravens, though, to their credit. I mean, with a quarterback that had no film on him in the Browns uniform and a coach, not head coach, but a play caller that's never called plays for the franchise either. So it looks completely different for the Baltimore Ravens, and they were kind of preparing for that Deshaun Watson-esque offense that we saw earlier this year. So that changed things up a little bit, and the Browns beat the Ravens. But still, that happens in the NFL, where a team will surprise you on any given Sunday. It does. Just look at what happened with the Lions and the Texans. Did anyone think the Texans were going to blow that 23-7 lead? I don't think so. So anything is possible in the NFL. I've learned that many, many years ago. But the Browns, and that means the Browns could go on some miraculous run here and run the table maybe. I doubt it. I don't see that happening at all. They play New Orleans in New Orleans, and we saw how New Orleans looked immediately after firing Dennis Allen. That team started to take off once again against the Atlanta Falcons, who are leading their division right now. Having said that, we'll talk more about my predictions on that game in a little bit, but New Orleans will probably come back down to earth a little bit more because they just fired their coach, and now there's film on them with their current situation as a whole. I still think, if you look at the Cleveland Browns, they have a long way to go either way. They're going to have to beat New Orleans. You look at the schedule right now. As I said, Miami, they play later in the year. That might be an easier opponent for them, but if Miami goes on a run with how favorable their schedule is it really an easy run? A lot of divisional games are still in there. You still have to play the Bengals in Cincinnati. You end the season with the Baltimore Ravens. You have to play Pittsburgh twice within a 3-week span. And then you have Denver in the middle. And Denver, even though I don't think Denver is very good, they're still not an easy out. And they're playing essentially for their playoff lives right now before a possible collapse takes place. They paid the Kansas City Chiefs really tough. And you also have to play the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Browns are in kind of a tough situation right now in terms of the schedule. Based on that schedule, I see 4-13, 5-12. But Kevin Stefanski can prove himself again to be the really good head coach that I believe him to be and win 6 games this year. 6-11, maybe 7-10. Maybe over-exceed a little bit down the stretch and just prove and validate yourself as a head coach. And I think the fans would be A-okay with that. Having said that, though, I'm not so sure that's going to happen. But the Browns are in a tough predicament. And then you look at the news about Jedrick Wills Jr. possibly resting off and then getting benched the next week because he wanted to rest his knee or whatever that situation is. The Jedrick Wills saga is probably coming to an end sooner than later. And if guys are just starting to learn to just take rest because they want rest now and they're getting benched for it, yeah, they deserve it. I made it very clear with my opinion on Anthony Richardson, the quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, that, yeah, no, you don't just pull yourself out of a play because you're tired. And if Jedrick Wills is going to play games like that, I can see exactly why the Browns didn't start him the following week and they put DeJuan Jones out there. It makes total sense to me. So, yeah, the Browns got a long way to go here, but we'll have to see what takes place. It's a long season. And the bye week, just having that breath of fresh air, really, that breath of fresh air has just been incredible for the Browns. And they're just relax and let's just keep rolling this ship. But the bye week was just great to just kind of take our breath as fans and understand that we're a 2-7 football team. The ship is probably already sunk, but hey, maybe have a few extra lifeboats and get those wins going the remainder of the season. We'll have to see what takes place with that, but man, it's been a grind for the Cleveland Browns. But you look at it around the rest of the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs, that was a clutch win once again over the Denver Broncos. I mean, what do you expect? The Chiefs are literally on their way to a 17-0 season. Who's stopping these guys? I don't see it. I don't see anybody stopping the Kansas City Chiefs. So what's that going to mean? Kansas City Chiefs might roll their way to another Super Bowl title, honestly. And now, I think the one team Kansas City doesn't want to see, and they're not on their schedule yet, but could be come Super Bowl time, is the Detroit Lions. Right now, the only team I see on paper not afraid of the Kansas City Chiefs is the Detroit Lions. And Jared Goff already has great history against Patrick Mahomes. So, I like the Detroit Lions if they meet in the Super Bowl, but we don't know if that's going to be the Super Bowl yet. It's still a long ways away. But the Kansas City Chiefs are on their way to 17-0. Maybe they struggle with the Houston Texans. They haven't played them down the stretch yet. But look at the schedule they have. I like the Kansas City Chiefs in all those games. That football team's really, really good. And they only got better after an 11-6 season in their defense. Oh, man, is their defense really prevalent. But even then, their offense didn't have a great day, but they still found a way to beat the Denver Broncos. It's incredible what the Kansas City Chiefs are able to do. And they're essentially the new Patriots dynasty. It's really what it comes down to. Now, as I said before, a lot of people want to go back to the Patriots dynasty. I am probably one of them at this point because this is just unbelievable to me. But hey, Kansas City's Kansas City. They're doing what they're doing best, and they're winning football games. And they have the right culture, the right coach, the right quarterback, the right tight end. Now they have the right running back. When you look at Kareem Hunt stepping up, you look at DeAndre Hopkins being a great addition to the team. Oh, just letting the Chiefs have DeAndre Hopkins is criminal on the Tennessee Titans' part. I get the Tennessee Titans got some compensation from it, but why let him go to the Chiefs? Anywhere he could have gone, why the Chiefs? Who knows? Who cares? The Kansas City Chiefs are clearly the best team in the NFL, and the Detroit Lions, I'd say, are just a smudge below them. And the only reason I say that is because Tampa Bay beat Detroit, Kansas City beat Tampa Bay, but, you know, there was coming down to a coin flip. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers season's kind of gone off the rails a little bit, and it's no fault of Baker Mayfield, believe it or not. But I still like the Atlanta Falcons to easily win that division. And also, the New York Giants and the Carolina Panthers. Carolina's starting to figure things out little by little, but they still have a long way to go. They've already exceeded last year's win total, and I can't even remember the last time they won back-to-back games. So, good for Carolina, and they did that over in Germany on Sunday morning. So, Carolina getting another win. They're not as bad as the New York Giants, we've come to find out. that's it for today's edition of Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty. Stay around later this week. I will have more Raw Takes for you and plenty more to get to. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow me on social media. And you can always find those social media links right below in the description. Have a good one, everybody. I'm Andrew Hoty. Those are my Raw Takes, and I'll be back with you later this week.